Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Cynthia Harrison from Rhombus Healing Arts, your on-demand holistic mystic. And we are about to get started. So welcome as you come in. We're on Instagram today. So I rebooted Restream. I'm back in love with it again. And we are streaming on everywhere. All right. So we're here for a good time, not a long time, and let's get started. So let me know who's here. Hey, Lisa. Hopefully you've got the link for our mastermind shortly after this. So let me do a shout out. Hey, MA. And whoever's on Instagram, welcome. All right. So this is the on demand. Cynthia, yes, that's me. Cynthia, on demand, Monday to Thursday. Yes, you're laughing. I'm like a used car salesperson. No, you need to know. If you want to know about the mystical way, just kick the tires. And yes, the windscreen wipers work, but no, Monday to Thursday, right? So Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, and Tuesday and Thursday, 9 a.m. Whatever that is to you, you can go and have a look at the times if you don't know how to use the time zone calculator or whatnot. So we're here for about, I don't know, I'm going to see. I'm trying to sort of keep it more succinct, but we'll see how we go. Yes, you scoff and laugh, but let us see. I have faith in you, Cynthia. Yes, I have faith in you. And then at about like 20, 30 minutes, we're going to move over to the Holistic Mystic Mastermind mentorship. So if you have the link to that, if you're part of that, come over to the Zoom. The Zoom's up now. So if you want to come over now, feel free. Those of you that are not, why not? Because this is awesome. Like, where do you get mentoring for $30 a month? So that's 4 days a week. And you get access to the portal, which has what? I don't know how many months of replays and information and resources. So the link is wherever you're looking. In Instagram, I think it's in the profile. If not, send me a message and I'll get that to you. So you can come today free, and after 2 days, you'll be it'll go around to $30 for the month. All right, let's get started. Are there any questions before we do? How are you doing? Do you have any questions? You put them in the chat. Put them in the chat. All right, I'm excited. I've been painting. I don't have it here. It's actually in the lounge room. Oh, well, I'll have to show you tomorrow. I've been doing the crowns of my beings. And because we've been talking pretty much all month about the rise of the feminine, or the rise of the human in our spiritual development, from Homo sapien to Homo spiritus, or Homo luminous, some like to say, it is about going from this dark, dense place that many of us abuse and poo-poo and push out of the way and treat with disrespect. It is our life. It is part of who we are and how we are. And this is why I say, when we're in fear, when we sense something in our physical, that sensation, we can label it whatever we want, but let's just call it what it is. It's a nervous system, or neurological response to our environment, and also our past environment, aka our trauma and attachment. right? And how that pops up to smack us in the side of the head every now and then. Am I right? Or maybe it just tickles you a little bit. Maybe it pokes at you a little bit, and you just sort of, move away slightly, right? Not really listening. It's like a child. Did your children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews, or even, strange kids down the street, not strange kids, but stranger that came out of, I often have little kids when I would be out and about, come up to me and ask me a million questions. Have you ever had that? It's this little fear coming to you and saying, hey, right? This little one coming and going, are you aware of this? I'm concerned about it. And so how do you direct? Where are you in your leadership? Are you in your fear, your ego, your density consciousness? No judgment, just observation, observe, witness, right? I so want to go into what happened on the weekend, but I will try not to digress, even though it is all about our experiences here on planet Earth and beyond, I guess you could say, right? Oh, you know what I got to do? MA, I have to record the Zoom. All right, there we go. Lucky. So if you're watching from one of the other platforms, say g'day. I can see Rhombus Healing Arts and I can see Instagram, and I've got the Zoom up, so welcome. Now, what I had planned to say, it's always sort of like, oh, there's so much information, but we're in the third week of March, so we're sort of wrapping up our topic for this month. I mean, you can come in at any time because they're all sort of individual, really. But today, I guess I'm going to talk about like how we relate to our own psyche, or how we relate our own sense of self. Or do you have a sense? Do you even speak like that? Maybe you don't, right? I talk about the mystic path being able to sit with yourself, understand who you are on this physical level, your physiology, your physical body, your nervous system responses, your fears, your loves, the minds, the lower mind, or our density consciousness, we may call the ego. But we also have other aspects of mind. And I used to joke and say, I help you lose your mind, meaning not necessarily lose the ego, but transcend it in a way. Now, we've been talking about Queen Esther and Queen Vashti and how they relate to this. Just using story or metaphor for our minds to grasp the concept of how we can live this in the world, how we can be that as a reflection of the power that we can step into or receive or acknowledge as part of us, as the matriarchs, right? So we can also see ourselves as a prism, right? Which we can relate to everything, that prism of, a light going through. It's like I see Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Any Pink Floyd people here, right? My first double album was The Wall, just saying. I think I was 8 or 9. Knew every word by high school. By 12, I used to sit in math class just singing that, getting kicked out, all those things. Relax, relax, relax. Yeah. So I digress again. I'm feeling on fire today. I'm tired, so that probably, you're not tired, not sleepy tired, really. Okay, so this prism, we've got this prism. Let's get going. And we sort of are relating to everything through this prism. And in a sense, it's like working out what we can trust, what we can't, what we can't trust in our own reality. So if you look at the light going through a prism, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I saw Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, when I said it. And so it's this white light going to the prism. It's actually how we see too, our pyramidical cells in our head. And the rainbow of colors, right? But anyway, again, bringing it back, how we can't trust our own reality, our own assessment of ourselves, or can we? Because if we can't trust our own reality or our own assessment of ourselves, then what can we trust? And how do we operate? I'll sit back while everyone tells me how I can live my life. Any takers? Who wants to teach the teacher? Just dropped my pen, but that can stay there. So I guess the question is, how do we know if a person, or if yourself, or if myself is driven by ego or self-serving motives, or if they're being altruistic? Like, how do we even know that? Because you all know people, or even yourself, where you can go, is that my ego? Like, is that me? Is that my true self? I hear it all the time, and in movies, and I chuckle a bit, things like, it's my truth, it's my true self. Majority of humans don't even know who they are. Don't tell me you're speaking your truth. How can it be your truth? You don't even know who you are. You don't even know, right? Am I, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm open. I'm a receptacle. I will receive and I will give. Right? But these are the things that I navigate for myself. If I'm making a decision, where am I making that from? Who's making the decision? Who are you? Who? I really want to know, right? Do you not want to know who you are? The true self, the center of the bullseye. Oh, I'm going to crack out the colors. Hang on. Just for reference, we've talked about this before, but some of you may have just popped in. That center of the bullseye, this is that core, or that general state of consciousness that is not corrupted until it starts to come out by all of this stuff. That is your childhood experiences, your past relationships, all your trauma and attachment crap, right? It's all here. It's all here. I probably should have done that in a different color. And what you're doing is starting from here, possibly, and got to traject the labyrinth of all your crap. And then this is the behaviors where we behave it into the world, right? So how do we know this Satnam, this true self, this core of what else do we call it? You know, it doesn't really matter what we call it, but that is that center, that core, and how we navigate all of that. And it's so instilled. If that encoding and those recordings, right, are playing unconsciously through the vessel of who you are, right? I was going to say your names, but I don't know all the people that are here. Then the behavior, that's why I say when I worked with the kids and really showing different ways of parenting based on the behavior is telling you. It's a language. It's what's being said that it's indescribable, some of the stuff in here. So the behavior tells you, right? It's unconscious, but it's telling you. And so if you watch how you are in the world, how you're in the world, how you're going from being into, you know, expressing all of this, but your truth and who you, that so when you say, this is my truth, is it? And it might be. Usually when you're sitting in that truth, like when we sit, so those of you in Relevate, we've got an extra class this Friday, just a shout out, just in case you didn't save it. So the 22nd, okay? I can see you reaching for your phone. You didn't have it in, did you? Anyway, I was going to send you another email, but I can see some of you that are on here. So we're doing another one. And this is part of that, like being able to find that core, that center, that place where we feel nothing, nothingness. We just are. We're not behaving it. We're not. And we can learn to bring that state into our everyday life, into every situation. That is your life as meditation. So anyway, I've gone off track a little bit. Well, have I? No, not really, because this is the core of these aspects of self. And each one of these little pieces, we'll do it in green. So this little experience here encoded, this longer one here encoded, this one here, this one here, this one. Oh, what about this one and this one and this one? And oh, this red one here and that one, right? They all need to be integrated. They all need to have some sense of safety and security. Now, there might be core aspects that then produce all of these other sort of offshoots, right? So a core trauma or something that was encoded from very young, and then every other experience that had a slight fear on it, then again was encoded in a particular way until you have this amalgamation of all these memories that haven't been laid down fully because of what the hippocampus does when it's flooded with cortisol and adrenaline and other neurochemicals. It shuts down, so it can't integrate the experience fully. So therefore you have behaviors that come up from a sense you feel in your body, and then a behavior, meaning words and actions, right, come from that. And then you might look back and go, why did I do that? When you become conscious again, why did I say that? Or why did I react like that? You know, I did it again. Or I reached for that food or that substance or that whatever it is, because of these programs running, right? So when I say, you know, around questioning the reality or the assessment of ourselves, that what we can trust and how do we operate, it's complex. How do we know if we're driven by ego? Because just here, even that piece, how do you know? How do you know? Because sometimes if you think you're not, and you're saying to somebody as you're yelling at them, I'm not. This is my truth. I want this done. It's my truth. I need it in my life, right? It's not my ego. And I'm making a bit of fun, but we've all been there. If you haven't, I don't know, living under a rock, I don't know where you've been, but right, people get triggered. Or you go the opposite. You might go really quiet. You might go really, really quiet. Anyway, I think majority of us think that we're being altruistic, or, we're above our ego, right? It's just fun to contemplate, Well, when you're feeling all right, when you're in it, you'd be probably swearing at me. It's like when I talk to people, I had a call earlier and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to trigger you now. Right. But she knew where I was going, and she was conscious of what was happening. So it's bringing awareness, helping, assisting you to be conscious of what's unconscious, those unconscious behaviors, why we're protecting ourselves in such a way that we can't even see what's happening. So how do we know? Right? Esther shows us this. The story this month was of the feminine rising. And it is all to do with the ego. And we're going to sort of unpack that in the next few days. This sense of ego and the masculine and the feminine, and start moving towards a more sort of holistic way of looking at it, rather than just these historical, we could call them archetypes. But when we get to the energies of them, they're not archetypes. The energetics or the energy of them are being that are within us. They're aspects of us. So if we're trapped or caught up unconsciously by the ego, how are we going to know? So if we're unconscious, how are we going to know? How do you know? That's why often it smacks you in the face. I used to say it hits you like you get hit by a truck, because sometimes the force is that hard, right? So you get an illness, your relationship stuff comes up, your financial, like whatever it is that's going to trigger you most comes up and says, hey, sweetheart, I'm here. Here's some flowers. And you're like, oh, take me to hospital. I don't want this type of love. Right. So if we can start to look at, contemplate some of these questions, right? How do you know? How do you know what relationship you're in with yourself? How do you know? And some of the best ways, if you really, can't find it, are the people around you. But the thing is, sometimes people might say to you, and they're sometimes, probably all the time, you've got someone, in their state of puffed up chest, trying to tell you what's what, and trying to tell you you're in your ego and you think you're all that and you need to come down a rung. Wow. So then who is in their ego, or a both, or a none? How do you know? Who's speaking? How do they know? How do they know? And then if you go by what somebody else has said, and how do they even know? Because they might be in theirs and they're seeing you through their lens. And then you start pulling yourself into something else. So you're not in your power. Power and confidence is a transcendence of ego. Esther stood in front of the king in all her power, transcending ego. Do not feel or think that to be in your power is your ego. Right? Yeah, feel it. This is that feminine power. It's not power over. It's not powering through. It's standing in the light, because the dark is the light in that she is the star, the morning star. She is the moon. The drop assists in dampening, transcending the ego, because we're flat down onto the earth, into the earth. The earth is part of it. And then there's this journey back home in humility. Humility doesn't mean doormat, laying down, letting everyone wipe their dirty, muddy feet on you, allowing every and anybody into the temple. Fine line, fine line. Like it can be, right? So we can explore this forever. We can, like, it's one of those, sitting contemplation. But let's look at when to be, I guess, worried, or let's say worried about the ego, and when to be clear of it and how to transcend it. This is when discussing the rise of the feminine energy, which I just mentioned. Just checking the chat. How do we know we're not just pumping ourselves up, or I'm not just pumping you up? It's this empty facilitation, empty, it's just like rah, 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 yeah, cheerleader, yeah. And then you go into your world and you just deflate again, right? Fanning each other's flames. Just fanning each other's flames. This is what this story is about. Vashti and Esther. The ego and transcendence of it. So the queen, or these queens, different aspects of the queen, the light and the dark, and the rise. So the rising of the morning star, as I mentioned, the journey of that rising of the morning star, that's our journey. or the odyssey of the moon. Originally, the moon was created equal to the sun. So there's a lot of stories on that. And I haven't brought it fully in, but you know, that might come up again as we go along. These stories of the sun and the moon. And that the moon was created originally equal to the sun. There was a point when the moon was reduced in size. It's waxing, it's waning. Sometimes we see her, sometimes we don't. Sometimes she's a slither, sometimes she's full and luminous. So it's the most dynamic of the luminaries, the rise and the decline, which is really our journey. Who's this coming in? Okay, just let some people in. So our journey. So in these stories that we've been talking about all week, and you can go back and look at the replays, I'll leave them up probably another week, about the story of the rise, the drop, the ego, the transcendence, our energetic and spiritual journeys as humans, but also little aspects there, particularly for women. But it's said that the return of the Messiah, she will return and be as great as the sun. So the feminine ability to reflect and illuminate the darkness, which is the power of faith. And I was just talking about that. The darkness of faith. Think about that. Or blind faith. Darkness. Can't see. Don't know the answer. Faith is that feminine, the Bina, the woman, the womb. And the seed is planted into the what? The dark, the earth, into the darkness, into the womb. You can't see what's going on with the seeds. You have to dig it up or have an ultrasound, right? Faith. It's a representation of faith. So the ability to reflect and illuminate the darkness, which is the power of faith. And that will be, you know, all religions and whatnot talk about the return of the Messiah in some way, shape, or form, right? So there's that. In that time, the woman, the feminine aspect of the beloved will be equal to and shine as brightly, if not brighter. This is what these stories are telling us. This is what the energetics show us. So the power of faith will be as dominant, as brilliant of the sun, with that constant emission of light, because the moon reflects the light. It's not emanating from it in the same way. So she is the trait of faith and the ability to protect the light of the sun into the darkness. And we mentioned, but I'll mention again, for those of you that weren't here, Esther in Aramaic means moon. And there's all these other translations, but I'm not going to go into it today. You know, if someone wants to actually study it and go deeper, then. But so the meaning of the hidden, right? The hidden Esther means the hidden, right? The brilliance of the moon is hidden in this stage of history. So I'm going to wrap up in a minute there. I've got so much more to tell you, but we still have tomorrow. Still have tomorrow. What else can I say before we wrap up? It's said that the stars were created as an appeasement to the moon as she was diminished. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's something that I saw. You know, it's like, well, interesting that the stars. Now, everything has, I saw your face, Rebel. Everything has, everything has, it's all coded, right? Every star is numbered. Everything has meaning. I just don't have the time, and it's not like a course, right, to go into it. So I'm giving you seeds or little crumbs that may have a little bit of essence that could connect you to something you've been looking at, or you felt, or you know, or that you want to know more about, so you can ask questions, right? It's impossible. There's so much in everything that we're talking about. It's just like the depth is infinite, because we're talking about the infinite. We're talking about our relationship with no thingness, the beloved. Is, you know, so the story and the importance of Esther shows the transformation, or the ability to transform, or more importantly, transcend ego, right? I was just talking to somebody about this. It's not about necessarily killing off, you know, Queen Vashti. Queen Vashti is another aspect of Esther. She's the dark side. She's the backside. So this week, we're going to start going into the front and back, the light and the dark of the human, but also, you know, really the core of how we can use this in our relationships and our everyday life, which we've been going into in the mastermind. But I'll be going in deeper this week to sort of round that off, and we'll see where we go for April. And so, yeah, I think we'll wrap the live up here. And so come over to the mastermind, and we'll see where we go. Who knows? Looking forward to seeing what's going on in your worlds, and what's going to come up to enlighten us and bring us together. So for those of you that joined us on social media, thank you. And we'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. So pop in and see the next chapter of The Drop to the Rise. And the link's in there if you want to join us for the Holistic Mystic Mastermind and mentoring to go deeper. All righty. So let's say ciao to Instagram. Bye for now. And see you to the other streaming.